Joining us now is Frank Zaccanelli.
Frank Zaccanelli.
Frank Zaccanelli.
Frank Zaccanelli.
Let's welcome Frank Zaccanelli.
Live from the Real News Studios in Dallas, Texas, welcome to the To Be Frank Show. Your host, Frank Zaccanelli, has been in the world of domestic and international business and professional sports for 40 years. And as a former minority owner, president, and general manager of the Dallas Mavericks, he's been asked to comment on current events in the national news for most of his professional career. But what he and many others are really looking for is a place to find just the facts. Welcome to the To Be Frank Show.
Live from Dallas, Texas, welcome to Thursday's edition to the To Be Frank Show. I'm your host, Frank Zaccanelli. I'm happy to be with you today. We have another situation today where I could literally not fit a guest in. Now, for Monday's show, we got one of the top guests at the exact right time. We have the police chief of Houston, Art Acevedo, that's going to be our guest. And I may not even do a monologue. I'm going to see how Art's time, stacks up. But we're going to try to figure out how to really get a lot of information, because this thing in Wisconsin now and all the pieces, he is going to be the expert of all experts to be able to help us try to understand this. And I have a segment on that today, so we're going to cover that. But I'm happy to be with you today. You can reach us at the To Be Frank Show YouTube, the To Be Frank Show Twitter, the To Be Frank Show LinkedIn, the To Be Frank Show Facebook, and the ToBeFrankShow.com for those of you that can't navigate the internet quite well like me. So that's the easiest way to kind of pick up the show. The show is growing. As I mentioned, we're now well over 100,000 views a show, starting from nothing. So I'm pretty happy with that, even though I'm not going to be happy with it for very long. I want to continue to grow the show. But what's clear to me is that the concept of what we have set out to do is catching on with the people who are viewing this show, that we're trying to give you unhomogenized, unpasteurized, without political ideology. We're trying to give you the news that is important to you. And what we're doing here is, as I'm trying very hard to look at this thing from both sides. I have both sides today, and Republican and Democrat. I don't really care about any of the politics in this country. What I care about is I care about our country. And that's what's being lost in a lot of what we're dealing with today. It's being completely lost. All you have to do is turn on your televisions. Now, the Republican National Convention is underway, and we're now into Thursday's version of the keynote speech by the candidate, and happens to be President Donald Trump. So I think we're going to really watch this with anticipation. What I predicted, I believe, has really happened, is that the Republicans have a much more lively, and it appears to me much more choreographed convention. Again, all conventions now are completely different than any other time in American history, probably, because of the coronavirus. There's no in-arena activities, but the Republicans, I think, have become very creative about what they're trying to do. And I said that I felt that the Democratic convention was a bit boring. Again, Joe Biden's speech was a speech, but I felt that it was boring, and I felt that it was taped, and I felt that it wasn't really a production. If you leave it to the Donald, the guy that made an incredible mark in the world in reality TV, this is what you're kind of seeing. But I thought that his wife's speech was unbelievable. We're going to get into that. Mike Pence is a blocking and tackling guy. It's what he is, okay? I mean, I wouldn't hire him to give a motivational speech, but, he's a blocking and tackling guy. So tonight, I think you're going to see the Donald in all his glory at the White House, and everyone's all upset that he's giving the speech from the White House. I don't have a problem with that. I mean, he's not going to the convention. Now, if he had a convention and he said, no, I'm going to give it this speech from the White House because this is what I want to do, that'd be one thing. But we're in different times. So we're going to keep an eye on it. And on Monday, if I have time, we're really going to cover the Trump speech. If not, it'll be at several segments down the road. But as I mentioned to you, things are heating up. And right after this convention, these guys and these parties and these networks who have chosen up, okay, are going to go at each other like nobody's business. It is beyond me how you can have a story, turn on one cable channel, they report the story, turn on the other cable channel, and you don't even know it's the same story. And I don't know how that is. Just check the websites out. Go to the major cable company and the major network websites. It's all over the board for the same story. It's all being identity politics at its worst. It's just impossible to sort through. So we'll do our best on this show. I've got a little bit of a pre-monologue, and then we'll get into the issues for today. So anyone who is watching television the last couple of days knows that a major hurricane, Category 4, hit the Louisiana coast. And I feel terrible for these people because a lot of the people in these coastal communities have had to deal with their businesses drying up because of the coronavirus. Now, you've had Hurricane Laura, a Category 4 that hit sometime in the middle of the night last night, and you take a look now at the remnants of it. Lake Charles, Louisiana, and certain places on the Louisiana coast were pretty hard hit. It's going to take a day or two to really assess the damage. But here's the issue, and this is one thing that I've learned about hurricanes from just my own dealings, is that it's not necessarily the winds and it's not necessarily the rain unless you're completely in the middle of the eye of the storm. It's the power outages. It was reported about a couple hours ago that 500,000 people in Louisiana, 500,000, don't have power. Now, you want to talk about a miserable situation in the middle of 90-degree heat. That's not a lot of fun. So that's one of the real detriments to when a hurricane does hit. If it doesn't wreck your property, if it doesn't flood your property, you have these power outages, and sometimes these power outages can last up to 7 to 10 days because the power company's doing everything they can to try to figure out, how to repair the system. So the situation with the hurricane, it's now making its way north, and it's going to take a hard right and turn east. So everybody in its path, just should be ready. It's not going to be a catastrophic event now from the standpoint that it's going to wreck your property, because as it hits land, as everyone knows, it weakens. But it's still going to be a rain event. It's still going to be a weather event. So keep an eye on it. Okay. I thought this was an interesting story. And what's interesting about this story is the fact that this could never happen in the United States. An Australian woman, 28 years old, and I'll give you her name. Her name is Asher Faye Vander. Asher Faye Vander is now arrested in Australia and put in jail for 6 months. Let me repeat. Put in jail for 6 months for violating the quarantine laws of Australia around the coronavirus. Could you imagine doing that in Florida? Could you imagine, we're now putting people in jail for violating the quarantines. And apparently she hid herself in a car and was transported, and she was told to go to a hotel in quarantine. She didn't do it. She went to her boyfriend's place. It's all the same. And again, this is happening all over the world, all right? But what I thought was really interesting was the Australian authorities have now put her in jail for 6 months. Now we got to see her lawyers and how the appeal process. But could you imagine in the United States of America, we're now going to have to start jailing people? I don't think so. But I thought it was an interesting story. And then there's a very disturbing story that's in the pre-monologue, so I'm not going to have any video on this, but it doesn't need any video. CNN's Joe Lockhart, who was the 19th, I believe, press secretary of the United States during the Bill Clinton administration, Joe Lockhart. And he's been an incredibly opinionated guy politically. And CNN, of course, they hire all these talking heads. Joe Lockhart basically stuck his foot in his mouth, not once, but twice. And let me read to you what the situation is. And again, this guy is supposed to be a press-savvy individual. And I think these people on Twitter, they lose their minds. And one of the segments is going to be about a Hollywood personality that has completely lost their mind. But this Joe Lockhart has lost his mind. He attacks Nicholas Sandmann. Now, who's Nicholas Sandmann? He was the young high school student that in front of the Supreme Court, I believe it was, he was there and he was part of a march. And the Indian, the Native American man, I don't know what his name was, with the drum, and you saw the drum in the guy's face. And then Nicholas Sandmann was crucified in the liberal press because he had a Make America Great red hat on. And so him and his lawyers got together and sued CNN, among others. And the $250 million suit, we don't know what the final number was settled by CNN. Now, that should tell you everything you need to know, okay? That, Nicholas Sandmann and his lawyers basically took a major network to task. Well, this Joe Lockhart, who's supposedly a guy who is savvy, was a press secretary and everything else, decides that he's going to call Nicholas Sandmann because Nicholas Sandmann was asked by the Trump administration and the Trump campaign to speak at the convention. And he went to the stairs of the Lincoln Memorial, and he basically gave a speech. It's his constitutional right to do that. I watched his speech. I didn't think it was anything out of the ordinary other than he's a very conservative kid. Okay, he's a conservative kid. You have the right to be that in the United States. I don't necessarily agree with everything on the conservative side, very candidly, but he had the right to be able to do it. Well, this Joe Lockhart, this supposedly CNN talking head, brilliant political guy, calls him a wet-nosed kid. That's what he calls him, a wet-nosed kid. Well, I got news for you, Joe. That wet-nosed kid kicked CNN's butt in court to the point that they settled the lawsuit with him. That wet-nosed kid now has way more money than you have. Okay, Joe? And you have no right to be calling this kid anything except a young kid that has conviction in politics. No matter what his views are, he has the constitutional right to say whatever he wants to say. And Joe Lockhart calls him a wet-nosed kid. Okay, Sandmann, as I mentioned, addressed the RNC convention earlier in the week. Lockhart also, to put the double foot into his mouth. This guy, I'm telling you right now, I never met him. I don't know much about him other than he was a press secretary. This guy's lost his mind because he then states, I think a day later or whatever, on CNN, he suggested that Hurricane Laura, the hurricane that just hitting the Gulf Coast is karma. It's karma. He used the word karma. Now, where are you going with this, Joe? This is the kind of stuff that our country can do without. This is why I do the show. This is why, but the producers of CNN, are these people out of their minds to have this guy be a talking head in terms of saying some of the things that he says? I mean, it's ridiculous. Okay? Number one, you pick on an 18-year-old kid that your network picked on and got their butt kicked, ass kicked, butt kicked, you call it what you want, in court where they had to settle with the guy. And now you're saying that it's karma, that a hurricane hits coronavirus ravaged parts of our country? The coast has really gotten killed with the coronavirus because they depend on tourism. They depend on people coming. Well, they're not coming. And now all of a sudden, what came is Hurricane Laura, Category 4, that hit the coast. But you call it karma, Joe? I call it just complete insanity by you and insanity by the people at CNN. I'll be surprised if Joe Lockhart has his job 30 days from now. We'll keep an eye on it. Okay, let's go to the monologue. All right, I got yellow paper today. I ran out of white paper, but I'm going to get some. All my producers say, no, you can't have yellow paper. I said, well, I got yellow paper. So if that's offensive to anybody, write into the show, okay? If yellow paper is a problem for anybody, call in, write in, let us know, all right? I don't think it's a big deal. All right, we've got to get to a really serious scenario. And I don't really even know how to present this other than to just do it and try to understand it, because there's so many things that I don't understand. Maybe the viewership out there understands this better than me. But it's the killing of Jacob Blake in Kenosha, Wisconsin, which has set up an uproar now that is probably equal to or potentially maybe worse than the killing of Mr. Floyd. And I think we get into a situation here to where I don't have answers for any of this. I mean, we're going to roll a tape, and I had to go through about 5 versions of this because there were a couple of versions I couldn't even air. I didn't want to watch them. Okay? Now, there's some facts that are still out there in terms of why the police were actually there. What I'm to understand from what I read is that this gentleman, this African-American gentleman that was shot 7 times with his 3 sons in the car, okay? Now, there's some things that I'm going to talk about that I don't really understand, and we're going to get to that. But this gentleman apparently went to the store 15 minutes before the shooting to get more food to put on the barbecue. He was doing a barbecue with his family. This is what the reports are telling us. And apparently there was a domestic dispute. And according to what I'm reading is that Mr. Blake was in the middle of this domestic dispute. Some reports are saying that he was trying to break up the domestic dispute, okay? So 7 to 8 police officers show up at his house. Now, I think we need to understand why they came in the first place, who made the call, what the story is, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But Mr. Blake then gets, quote unquote, questioned by the police, and he doesn't really want to answer their questions. So now, as you see the video, Mr. Blake is now leaving his property and he is heading toward his car. And you see police officers with their gun drawn. Now, it appears to me that Mr. Blake does not have a weapon. He is trying to walk away from this situation. Now, I don't know, and we don't know, was he the reason for the call on the domestic dispute? Did he do something that created the police to come to his home? Again, I don't care what the circumstances are. They shot another African American, and we're going to get to that in just a minute, okay? But you see him leaving his property and heading toward his car while police officers have their guns out. Roll the tape, and then we're going to talk a little bit more about this. You know, I just couldn't even show the version where they show this police officer shooting Mr. Blake in his back 7 times. Now, did he threaten them that he had a gun in the car? You got some people that are speculating, that are reporting that. There is no evidence to that to this point. Did he have a firearm in the car? He had his 3 sons in the car. Was he going to the car to get a firearm? There again is no evidence of that. And if there is evidence of that, the police department needs to get that out there. But having said all of that, I don't understand, again, how these situations turn into shooting people. If Mr. Blake is leaving his property and you're a police officer and you are doing everything to try to question him, tackle him before you have to shoot him. Tackle him before he gets to his car. I mean, you're literally right behind him. Now, Mr. Blake is basically moving away from the police. He knows that they've got their guns drawn. You know, I don't understand that, but I do understand. I don't get what transpired before all of that. Did he talk to him? Are they there because he's the domestic violence problem? But again, you can't be shooting people because of a domestic violence issue unless they've shot somebody and they're threatening to shoot you. All I can see is this man coming off his property, and we've got at least 2 police officers who have their guns raised, and they're following him. If you think that he's going to go into his car, let's get back to common sense, because it appears to me that none of these situations have any common sense. If I'm a cop and I don't want to kill this guy, I tackle him on his lawn. Tackle him. Put him in handcuffs if that's what you think. Don't shoot him in the back 7 times. I mean, this is ridiculous. I couldn't even play one of the clips that actually showed it because it makes me sick. And let me tell you, these cops now have a lot to answer for, okay? Did Mr. Blake threaten them like you're hearing some reports that I'm going to my car to get a gun? I've heard that 2 or 3 times now. There's no evidence to any of that. But I mean, this is now, you know, some of the dialogue that occurs after these things, okay? But if you think that he's going to his car to get a gun, tackle him on his lawn. I don't see any explanation for killing, not killing, but pretty much maiming this man. They say he's going to be paralyzed. They say that the situation is going to be, he's going to be, you know, in a wheelchair or a bed the rest of his life. This guy has kids. And you're shooting this guy. Now, if he's got a gun on the floor and he's told you he's going to go get his gun and he's going to kill you, I still don't get why you let him then get to his car. Tackle him on his lawn. You got 80 you guys there. And anybody who watches this show knows I am not anti-police at all. At all. I am for the police. But there are these ridiculous situations, and every guy, every cop looks the same. These weightlifting white guys that just, I don't know what they're thinking. When they go to training, do they teach them not to think? I don't know. So the whole explanation about some of the other side of this equation, which I'm not buying any of it, I want to get the facts, that he was going to the car to get his gun, tackle him on his lawn. Is this too hard to understand? You got to wait till he gets to his car and shoot him 7 times in the back with 3 kids in the car? And this has set our country back, I mean, to a level that I can't even comprehend. And I know that my viewership out there can't comprehend it. It just is not understandable to me. I am a common sense guy. If it makes common sense to me, at least I can understand it. But this situation is a mess. And on top of everything with George Floyd, on top of everything with the coronavirus. Now, here's something interesting. Is Donald Trump going to mention this situation in his speech? If I'm advising him, I'm telling him, yes, you're going to mention it. And you're going to say that this is another situation that maybe could have been avoided. We got to get the facts, okay? Well, I can tell you, I've got a segment where the athletes in this country, okay, and rightly so, the athletes in this country, they're not looking for any more information. What they saw, they saw. And what I saw was something that could have been avoided. If he's going, again, I'm beating the hell out of this. If he threatened you and he's going to his car to get a weapon, you tackle him before he gets to his car. You don't wait till he gets to his car and shoot him 7 times in the back. It's common sense. So this is going to be a story that's going to be with us for a while. Our country is being torn apart by this stuff. And like I said, Art Acevedo is going to be able to add a lot to this. And I hope by Monday, that we get a little bit more information from the police department telling us what the justification for what appears to me to be unjustified is for this shooting. We'll stay in touch with the story. Okay. In the second segment, another disgusting story to me. This is why, again, I couldn't even have a guest on today again. I mean, this is just unbelievable. Melania Trump, who, if you don't like Melania Trump, you just don't like her, but there's no reason not to like her. It's the same as Joe Biden's wife. Jill Biden, you know, if you don't like Jill Biden, then you don't like her, but I don't know why you don't like her. These are just wives of politicians that have risen to this level, that are trying to support their husbands, okay? When you're either the first lady of the United States like Melania, or you were the second lady of the United States like Jill Biden, you know, you have responsibilities, you have public responsibilities. What's clear is Melania Trump wants to raise her child in peace. She wants to live her life in peace, but yet she is doing things that ultimately are important to the country, with her movements and other things that she's doing for children, and we'll get into all that. But we find out after her speech, I watched every word of her speech, and I thought her husband should have given parts of that speech. I mean, I thought her speech was fantastic. And again, I'm not a Trumper, I'm not a Bidener, I'm nothing. I thought that Melania Trump's speech was class, had a lot of dignity, and was really powerful as it related to her journey to the United States and what she's doing. So we pick up the newspaper and we start to look on the internet, and we see that this singer, Bette Midler, who I actually didn't mind until now, okay? I mind her a lot now. And she can't get out of this no matter what she says or does. But she goes after Melania Trump in a vicious, political, hateful way. Bette Midler is part of the problem, not only in Hollywood, but part of the problem in the United States. And again, I'm not picking on Hollywood. I'm picking on Hollywood, but the Republicans have their, here goes my yellow paper, they have their conservative side of their problems on their side, okay? I'm not picking on these people in Hollywood. I am today picking on Bette Midler. And I'll pick on her now for the rest of the time, because what she did was completely obnoxious and hateful. Let's roll the tape, and we're going to show you some of the comments from Melania Trump, and then I'm going to cover this Bette Midler thing. If you haven't seen it, it's awful. But this speech is terrific. Roll the tape.
I arrived in the United States when I was 26 years old. Living and working in the land of opportunity was a dream come true, but I wanted more. I wanted to be a citizen. After 10 years of paperwork and patience, I studied for the test in 2006 and became an American citizen. It is still one of the proudest moments in my life because with hard work and determination, I was able to achieve my own American dream. As an immigrant and a very independent woman, I understand what a privilege it is to live here and to enjoy the freedoms and opportunities that we have. As First Lady, I have been fortunate to see the American dream come true over and over again. I have met many inspiring women, children, parents, and families who have overcome life-changing issues that include addiction, homelessness, family members who are ill or have passed away, abuse of all kinds, and many other challenges that would make most people give up. The past 3.5 years have been unforgettable.
Okay. Anybody who watched that clip, and all 28 minutes of her speech was exactly the same. Class, dignity, completely under control. Anybody that criticizes this woman, there's something wrong with you. Because again, if you hate this bad, keep it to yourself. So let me tell you what this Bette Midler, this singer and all this other stuff, actress maybe, okay, this unbelievably hateful political activist has said. Number one, and I'm quoting all this now, her first comment was, "Oh God, she still can't speak English." Let me repeat. Oh God, she still can't speak English. I thought her English was great. Thought she looked great. Is it a problem to you, Miss Midler, that she has a Slovenian accent? Is that a problem for you? Is it a problem if someone has a Mexican accent? Is it a problem for you that someone has an African American accent? Is this a problem for you? Oh God, she still can't speak English. Now, Melania Trump's big signature charitable thing for children is Be Best. If you do your homework on Be Best, you'll come to the conclusion immediately, all she's trying to do is help young people, okay? She's trying to set a program that helps young people. Quote number 2 from the infamous Miss Midler. Be Best, quote, a ug bore. A ug bore. Now, I don't have the time on this show to do all the work on the Be Best. Go check it out for yourself and somebody tell me if they think that's an ug bore. All it is about helping young kids. As the First Lady of the United States should have initiatives to do that. I can't make this up. I cannot make this up. Her third comment. She can speak several words. She can speak several words in a few languages. Get that illegal alien off the stage. I mean, she said these things. This woman is supposed to be a respected singer, actress, whatever the hell she is. I think she's a nut job. And this is indicative of why, if you're on medication or you're drinking or you're doing drugs, I don't know what the situation with Bette Midler is. I'm not suggesting any of those, but I'm just saying, if any of those are involved, put your Twitter feed down, okay? This is so ridiculous. Get the illegal alien off the stage? I mean, okay, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, you got anything to say about this? Because if this was Jill Biden, I'd be taking the same position. If somebody said something about Jill Biden, that would be a huge problem for me. Leave the wives alone, okay? You guys and this whole choose up thing and all the media, and the media has created this. But Bette Midler, this woman's a joke. But we're not done. We're not done. And her last quote, this one's unbelievable, okay? You are one lucky Slovenian. And after all that surgery, you hit kind of a horrible jackpot chained to that colossal idiot. I mean, if it wasn't so sad, it would be hilarious. I'm sorry, I have to laugh. A educated, supposedly woman actually wrote this. Now, number one, Bet, I've seen you lately. Maybe you should call Melania and figure out who's doing some of the work on her, because she looks way better than you. Let's start right there. Maybe you need to get a little bit of work, and while you're in there, have them do a psychiatric exam. Okay, just do a psychiatric exam just to be sure that your head is cleared up. This is sickening. And again, if this happened to Jill Biden, I would be all over this with exactly the same fervor. But this is not right. This is what's wrong with our country. When I read this, I couldn't believe it. Now, Miss Midler, in apparently maybe a weak moment, okay? A weak moment. Has made another quote now that she's seen her whole world be completely upended because she's done. She has no more credibility ever, never, ever. It's like a guy that goes in and robs a bank. Guess what? He might reform himself, but you can't trust him in a bank. Okay? With Bette Midler, she's done. She has no more credibility. She ought to take her Twitter feed and throw it in the ocean. I'm sure you live on the ocean. Throw it in the ocean. Her follow-up quote to what happened to her, and I'm being somewhat nice. Some of this other stuff was even worse. Well, we've broken. I said Melania still can't speak English. I said Melania still can't speak English. I was wrong to say that. Okay? Okay, you're wrong to say that. She can speak English. She speaks better than you. I'd rather watch her than you. I don't care. If she started singing and couldn't sing, I'd rather watch her. Okay? But you're talking about she can't speak. What about the colossal idiot thing? And what about Slovenian? And what about all the other things that you said? Okay? This woman is just pathetic. And you want to know something which is unbelievable? Turn on all the news networks and turn on the majority of the cable networks, and guess what you're going to get? You know what you're going to get on this story? Nada. Zero. Nothing. Okay? So this is where we are in our country. But people like Bette Midler should just go away. Just go away. Because you need, like I said, call up Melania, get her plastic surgeon, because you need it. And then at the same time, in the plastic surgeon's office, go get a psychiatric exam too. Because, I think we got to clean up some of this. Terrible story. Okay. Number 3 on the agenda is the NBA's reaction now to this Jacob Blake shooting. And I get it. I completely get it. These guys, these athletes and these coaches and these, African-American people, they've had enough. Again, let's get back to the video that you saw, okay? There's no reason to let this man get to his car if he's told you or you think he has a gun. There is absolutely no reason to let him get to his car, wait till he opens the door, and then shoot him in the back 7 times with his kids in the car. There is no reason for this, okay? It's not justifiable. And if the police department comes out and says he threatened us and he had a gun in the car, okay, fine. Okay, shouldn't have that, shouldn't have done that. Tackle him on his lawn, handcuff him. You wait till he gets to his car so you can shoot him 7 times in the back. This cop's going down. It's 100%. This cop's going down. And the sad part is how many more of these have to happen before these police officers can get in their heads that they need to avert these things before they happen. This could have been averted 100 times as I saw this tape, okay? So now the Milwaukee Bucks all right, the home state team in the NBA, got together and decided not to play the playoff game last night, okay? They just decided, you know what? We're not going to play. This is our home state. We're in Milwaukee. If you look at where Kenosha is, it's south of Milwaukee, right on the lake there. And you get to a point to where you start to understand now the protest. But it didn't stop there. The Bucks decided they weren't going to play. 3 WNBA teams then decided they're not going to play. 5 major soccer league teams then decide they're not going to play. And then 3 major league baseball teams' games were canceled. So for all of you haters that are out there that want to hate on the NBA, and again, my history is I was involved for 5 years in the NBA. For all the haters that want to hate on the NBA, just keep in mind all of the other cancellations that I'm talking about, okay? And there were a lot more. There were a lot more. And there's going to be a lot more because people are getting sick and tired of this, and so am I. I'm sick and tired of it. Do I feel like an African-American man would feel that I'm under the same duress with the police? No. But you want to know what? I can't trust it either. I mean, I'm looking at this stuff. What the hell's going on? So the Milwaukee Bucks and all these other entities decide not to play. Roll the tape.
Bob, I have not seen anything like this in my life. An NBA team boycotting as a way of civil disobedience, as a way of protest, the Milwaukee Bucks saying that they're not going to play. I believe that there are other playoff games that are going to take place this evening, but not them. Put this in some sort of historical perspective for us, if you would.
Yeah, Jake, I have not seen anything exactly comparable to this. There have been gestures. I'm old enough to remember I was a teenager when Tommy Smith and John Carlos raised their fists at the Mexico City Olympics in 1968. Of course, Muhammad Ali, not in a team sport, gave up 3+ years of his career, and that was remarkable and remains at the top of the pyramid in this respect. There have been concerted efforts by athletes at various times, but never anything that is comparable to this. Colin Kaepernick and others kneeling. Yes. Black Lives Matter on the court at all the NBA playoff games. Yes. The Detroit Lions yesterday not practicing, which was a significant statement. But in this case, you're talking about a game, and a playoff game at that. And I don't know if others will follow, but obviously it's appropriate, as Christine mentioned a moment ago, it's appropriate that the Milwaukee Bucks lead the way, because if you live in Kenosha, Wisconsin, the Milwaukee Bucks are your NBA team.
And Bob, obviously sports leagues, and the NBA in particular, have been a place where players are speaking their minds, standing up for what they believe. This is obviously a stark example of civil disobedience and protest. Is it hurting the NBA with any fans who don't want politics in their professional athletics?
I cut it off because I want to answer that question. Is it hurting the NBA with some fans? The answer is yes. Do I really care that those fans are now put out because of what we now just witnessed with Jacob Blake? No, I don't. And I think Mark Cuban and I think the vast majority of owners don't care either. If you now want to make a political statement that they should just shut up and dribble, you remember that quote, just shut up and dribble, you lost me on that one. Because in my humble opinion, they have every right as young, mostly African-American athletes to voice their opinion. And if they voice it in the manner that they do, I support it. There are going to be, okay, all kinds of people. And I've said, now don't confuse this with the national anthem, because as it relates to the national anthem, they have the constitutional right to not stand for the anthem, to kneel. I stand for the anthem. But you want to know what? Don't confuse that with this situation. This situation is out of control. And anybody who's now upset with the NBA, be upset with the NBA, but you're wrong. They have the right to be able to do what they're doing, and I support them. Now, I have a second segment here. One of my favorite people in the NBA is the Los Angeles Clippers coach, Doc Rivers. I've met Doc several times, but more importantly, I know a lot of people that not only played with Doc when he was with the Atlanta Hawks, but worked with him and played under him as a coach for both the Boston Celtics, the Los Angeles Clippers, okay? Just to name a few. This is a man of complete integrity and character. And I'm going to play a video that I saw. This is one of the most emotional videos that I could watch because I understand the character of the man, okay? He's an African-American coach that played in the league, but he is a man of incredible, upstanding character and integrity. Roll the tape.
Convention, and they're spewing this fear, right? Like, all you hear is Donald Trump and all of them talking about fear. We're the ones getting killed. We're the ones getting shot. We're the ones that we're denied to live in certain communities. We've been hung, we've been shot, and all you do is keep hearing about fear. It's amazing to me why we keep loving this country and this country does not love us back. And it's really so sad. Like, I should just be a coach. And it's so often reminded of my color. You know, it's just really sad. We got to do better.
That's pretty emotional. Why can't our country love us the way that we love it? It's his message. Now, this is coming from a guy that is not radical. He doesn't, quote unquote, play the race card. Never has, never will. But this is raw emotion from a guy. Why can't our country love us the way we love it? You know, it's a question that we have to ask. And again, Doc Rivers is not the kind of guy that is condoning any of these protests that have now turned into riots. I mean, this is exactly what's going to happen again. It's going to be over and over and over. Your voices for the rioters are not heard the second that you cross the line and break the law. And Doc Rivers is not condoning any of that. Why can't our country love us like we love it? I mean, I don't know how it gets any straighter than that. I don't know how it gets any more emotional than that. We're going to stay on this story, but I thought that was an incredibly poignant interview. Okay. Section 4, Segment 4. The CDC was pressured from the top down to change the COVID testing guidelines. Okay? Is there proof of that? I don't know that we have proof. I don't know why anybody would change the testing guidelines. I really don't. And I'm a big advocate of more testing, more this, more that. We're going to get to a segment on the Florida schools here in a minute, which will be the last segment of the show. But the CDC has changed the guidelines, and now people are saying that they were pressured from the top down. The top down, according to the report, which is unsubstantiated, but according to the report, is the Donald and his administration, okay? Now, we have a quote from Anthony Fauci, who wasn't involved in this, but has a quote. And again, you hate Fauci, you like Fauci, you know, doesn't matter to me. But I don't understand why anyone would change guidelines. And let me tell you how the guidelines were changed. And this is, to me, again, we get back to common sense. This is the common sense show. Maybe that's going to be our new mantra. But it doesn't make common sense to me that if you've been connected in any way or exposed in any way to someone that has the virus, according to the new guidelines that are put out, you don't have to immediately be tested. Well, let me tell you what. That doesn't work that way in New York. It doesn't work that way in California. It's not working that way in a lot of parts of the country, okay? Because if the health department finds out you've been exposed, they call you up on the telephone and say you have to quarantine and, oh, by the way, go get tested. Okay? But here's the deal. The change in the CDC guidelines, given where we are, doesn't make any sense to me. Roll the tape.
You know, it doesn't make any sense. I'm not just going to say what, I'm going to say what the, and I'm going to let you fill in the blank. This is ridiculous. The CDC used to say if you've had close contact with someone with coronavirus, meaning within 6 feet of them for 15 minutes or more, you should get tested. Now they're saying you should consider getting tested, but you might not need to unless you're a vulnerable person, which usually means older or have an underlying health condition, or your doctor or local public health official tells you to. What? People who are exposed to someone with coronavirus should get tested. Experts will tell you that that is the case. Why wouldn't you want to get tested? And this kind of back and forth with very subtle language where you have to click on 3 different places to figure out what they mean is crazy making. It is not public health communication. It is clearly pressure from some force in some way. If you want to communicate clearly to the American public, the CDC knows how to do that. They do that for a living. They are not doing it here, and there must be a reason for it.
Well, I hate to agree with any talking head from CNN, Fox, MSNBC, or any of them, okay? I'm an equal opportunity guy that I don't really listen or like any of them. But she's right on the button. I mean, this one just doesn't make sense. And let me tell you what else doesn't make sense to me, is that why the Trump administration is so hell-bent to get this coronavirus thing off the plate. I get the fact that it happened at a time, if the coronavirus didn't hit the United States, Donald Trump would be up 15 points in the election. That's a fact. Done deal. The greatest economy, lowest unemployment, you go across the board. It hit. It happened. It's the Chinese virus. I'm sorry, we call it the Chinese virus on this show. Not being xenophobic. Chinese virus, okay? Not the people of China, love them, the government of China. But having said that, politically, I just don't understand another common sense question on why the Trump administration, every chance they get, they try to do this with the virus. Just don't change the guidelines. What the hell are you changing the guidelines for? Why would you do that in the middle of the pandemic? We're going to have another surge come fall and winter. Why would you do that? And then to say that if you're involved with somebody that's infected and you have contact with that person, you really don't need to be tested? That's insanity. Okay, let me give you Fauci's quote. Fauci's quote, I am concerned about the interpretation of these recommendations and worried that it will give people a false sense. You know what, Fauci? I don't agree with everything you say. I agree with this one, though. I just don't get it. Somebody somewhere in some dark place in the White House is basically telling people, well, we got to get this coronavirus thing, so let's ease up the testing, the people that need to get tested. That doesn't even make sense. We'll keep an eye on this. Okay. The fifth and last segment of the show is about one of the people that I have picked on this show to also prove the political swings here, that I don't just pick on Democrats or Republicans, we mix it up. But the people that I think this show picks on deserves to be picked on because they won't get picked on in the mainstream media, or they will be overly picked on. Again, depends on how the teams are decided and how they're chosen up, okay? Governor Ron DeSantis, who went to the Oval Office months ago and in the Oval Office with the president held a press conference that basically stated that we've got this thing completely under control. We know what the hell we're doing, and people don't need to go out and live their lives. This was probably now 3 months ago. Has the press conference, okay? All hell broke loose about 6 weeks after that, a month after that. Miami, Florida. Dade County, became the epicenter for a while for the coronavirus on the planet Earth. This thing blew up in DeSantis' face. And this guy, unfortunately, from a conservative standpoint, is so political that I can't even watch the guy, okay? I mean, he is the epitome of what some of these governors, Cuomo on the other side, and this, governor from, Portland and all this stuff, okay? This guy's the epitome on the conservative side. So what does he do? He does exactly what we have tried to convince the Donald not to do, okay, which is to use the school children as pawns in this political game. The Donald, early on, mentioned that he was going to hold up funding for any school district that didn't open up when he said open up. He's backed completely off that. We haven't heard a word about that from him, other than he wants the schools to open. I have not heard, maybe he said it and I haven't heard it, that we're going to hold up your funding, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. Well, Governor Ron DeSantis, in his infinite wisdom, as a completely conservative nut job, running the state of Florida, and he's going to lose the next election. And he may damage Trump's ability to win the state, okay? Because they're tied at the hip, even though the Donald is way smarter than this guy. I mean, we're talking about the Donald is here. This guy, I mean, everything that he does. He now threatens the school districts based on opening, not opening, that if you don't open, I'm going to hold up your state funding. Roll the tape. Okay, so I chose that clip because I wanted everybody to read it as it played. So this obviously goes to court, and Governor Ron DeSantis gets slapped down by a judge that basically says the following. His statement is that DeSantis's ruling absolutely disregards safety of the children. Okay? I mean, it can't be any clearer than that. Now, let me give you a couple statistics. Apparently now, some of the schools in Florida are open, okay? And this is something we're going to follow every week around the country. But some of the schools are now open. The Florida Department of Health reported that more than 700 COVID cases have been linked over the last 2 weeks in the schools that have opened from K through 12. Over 700 cases, okay? Now, again, you're going to hear all this stuff, and everyone's, well, these kids aren't dying, and, it's no big deal, and they're going to get over it. Most of them are asymptomatic and all that. That's fine. All that's fine. Let me say this. I had 3 kids. If I had 3 kids, they're not going to Ron DeSantis' school. And I'd be damned if I was an administrator in those schools if I'd let the governor bully me around. And that's all he is. The guy's a bully, to try to figure out how I'm going to open these schools. Some of the decisions that are made by politicians, as I do more and more and more of these shows, because I'm a business guy. I can't tell you for 5 minutes I'd know how to run anything in the political world. First of all, I want things done like 5 minutes after we decide we're going to do them. In the political world, it doesn't work that way. So I'd be a bad politician. But having said that, some of these politicians male, female, Republican, Democrat, doesn't matter. They make some of the dumbest decisions for their political careers that I've ever seen. All this guy has done, DeSantis, is upset a lot of people down there, parents and everything else. You're trying to get reelected. Are you not trying to get reelected? Are you trying to kill the Donald's ability to carry the state of Florida? If so, you're doing a great job. So keep on with it. And I'm being facetious. Okay, so that's our show today. Again, there is so much going on in the country. We're going to really have to watch this Jacob Blake scenario. It is really bad. I think the next few days are going to be filled with it. If I'm advising Donald Trump tonight, I mention it in a way that is respectful to the situation. I don't know that that's going to happen, so I'm going to be listening like everyone else. And we're going to have to see what happens. Monday's show, we've got the secret sauce. We've got Art Acevedo from Houston, Texas, the police chief that I have stated on this show should be the police chief of all police chiefs. We're going to get into this whole thing with him and maybe take the full hour to do it. So I'm going to decide that in the next few days. But I want everybody to stay safe. I want everybody to take care of their families. And we will be back with you on Monday. I'm Frank Zaccanelli. I'm the host of the 2B Frank Show. Again, if you want to follow our show, it's the 2B Frank Show YouTube, 2B Frank Show Twitter, 2B Frank Show LinkedIn, 2B Frank Show Facebook, and the 2bfrankshow.com. Signing off today from Dallas. Stay safe. We'll see you on Monday.